And Sharon has been away in Florida. Wasn't it great to have I don't know what you call that thing. So I'm glad you were playing it this morning, Sharon. Thank you so much. All right, Miss Ricky, come and tell us about how people served their God yesterday, last night. There was a lot going on here in this place. I think we were rocking and rolling downstairs. It was unbelievable. Just unbelievable. And what a lot of fun we had.
We did. Good morning, church.
Good morning.
You know, I know Pastor Kenny already asked certain individuals to stand, but what I want to do is I'm going to add to that. If you were part of the fundraising team, I want you to stand and remain standing. Fundraising team. If you volunteered, or you participated, or you made something for the fundraiser, I want you to stand. And if you attended the event last night, I want you to stand. We had a phenomenal time last night. But what I want you to know is we can put on the events, but we can't make them successful without you. Right. So on behalf of Pastor Kenyon and the board of directors, I say thank you. Now, I have a total for you, but I'm not going to give you that total today, and let me tell you why. As I came to church this morning, I was greeted with checks, and that's always good. And you know, I can't count without taking my shoes off to use my toes. So I didn't want to take my shoes off. So what I want to do is give everyone an opportunity. If you didn't attend last night, the event is not over. If you want to donate, do that, and on next Sunday, I'll give you that grand total. Can I get an amen?
All right. Talk about somebody who knows how to work it. That's Miss Ricky. She knows how to work it. I also want you to know that last night it was so amazing. Ricky had called upon some people to do a mini fashion show. Many of her friends from the community, many who do not go to church here because they have their own church home or they have not yet wanting to fully embrace all that we have going on here, but they showed up last night and did a phenomenal job. Lord have mercy, it was just amazing to see God in action in everybody who was here. And so it's amazing. Loretta Mountcastle also, this is not a pick on Loretta Sunday, but I have to tell you, it was amazing. She led the Boot Scootin' Believers. Carol, believe it or not, she did. And so she was right on out there. Give her a hand. And we have already started to identify some people that we're going to ask to be in this year's fashion show. Thank you. So if I come up and speak to you, or Miss Ricky does, just be forewarned. Why do we do this? Why do we have great events here? We do it because we believe in our God, number one. Number one, and foremost, as we gather together, it is an amazing thing to see people smile. It is an amazing thing to see people give from their heart. It is an amazing thing to see people have conversations with others just because. Last night, over and over again, people said to me, you know, every time we come to an event at MCC Richmond, it is always over the top. And I've thought a lot about that last night and this morning. Thank you so much for making sure that people get that your God is over the top. Because as they come and experience community, there are those who really need community. I was so touched last night to just scan the room and see some of our new members interacting with people, getting to know new people. I was seeing a mother and daughter laughing and giggling and just having a good time. I don't know what was going on the cell phone with Margaret and Eowyn, but it touched my heart to see that laughing going on. And that's what it means to be transfigured. That's what it means to live in a world with all kinds of madness. And yet when you come and you meet with God's people, You are changed because of the Holy living within you, each and every one of us, in a significant way. That indeed does change lives. Changes lives. Why is that? Because it is the Holy reminding you that you matter. What you say and what you do matters. And why does it matter? It matters because you are the beloved of God, just the way you are. Lock, Bach, and stick, and everything about you. Everything, all of that. You get it. Everything about you is about being the beloved of God. Jenny, you'll have staff meeting on Tuesday. Let me remind you. And there's nothing that we could do to ever cause God to not love us. That's why this text today is so important for us to understand. So let's set the scene a little bit. Here Jesus is going up going up a mountain with Peter, James, and John, and all of a sudden they get to the top and something extraordinary happens. Jesus is transfigured. He completely changes. The image of the person that they knew is completely different. Something outside of Jesus is happening. We call that a spiritual experience. Jesus was having a spiritual experience, and what happened? It scared the bejesus out of Peter. Scared the bejesus out of Peter. And what does Peter do in response? He does something that many of us do. He starts talking. Let me go and build some tents for you. Moses and Elijah, who just suddenly appeared, right? They had been dead. They just suddenly appeared. And Peter was profoundly shaken. And wouldn't we be too? Wouldn't we be too? But in the midst of Peter's fear, in the midst of his shock, he decides to get busy. And all of a sudden, then the voice says, Peter, this is my beloved, whom I am well pleased. And what does Peter do? All of a sudden, he can't identify where the voice is coming from. He knows it has to be coming from God. And so Peter falls down on the floor, on the ground, probably closing his eyes and getting down as low as he could do. And this is what is significant. At that moment where Peter was outdone, at that moment, Jesus puts out his hand to Peter and raises him up and says, do not be afraid. Do not be afraid. As we have studied the scriptures these past 3 years, we have seen over and over again that when Jesus touches somebody, extraordinary things happen. Healings happen. People that had been marginalized are restored to hope. When Jesus touches somebody, he touches people with the assurance that it's going to be okay. Now, it doesn't mean that as Jesus touches someone that instantly, within a flash of the eye, everything is made right. But what it does mean is that God is going to be with you through whatever process you're going through. And it is going to be okay. What we have to do is how Peter was instructed to do. And what was that? To simply listen. Just listen. Don't talk. Don't get busy. Don't try to hide behind a title or a role or brokenness or marginalization. Simply listen. Because it's in those times of desperation, it's in those times when we know that we are outdone, that the gig is up, and that our back is on the wall, that we begin to be open to the Spirit of God working in our lives as never before. And that's the moment that Peter was having. This moment to simply listen. And listen to what? Jesus was not coming with a litany of to-dos. He didn't come telling Peter what he needed to do to earn anything. He came wanting Peter to know, rise up. Do not be afraid. It is okay. We see Jesus as being one who came to remind people that they are loved no matter what. That's what Peter needed to hear. And that's why God wanted so much for Peter to listen. To hear these words of assurance that you are loved, that it's going to be okay, that the journey may be rocky, but ultimately everything is going to be okay. And why is that? Because in listening to Jesus, Peter had another opportunity to realize that God's Spirit was with him all. Not some of the time, always. And not some of the time are we called to refer to the beloved of God. So Jesus is telling Peter, you are the beloved of God just the way you are. It is going to be fine because it is fine. Did you also notice that as soon as Jesus touched Peter and Peter looked up, everything was over? The transfiguration was over. It was done. Right? I believe that this text reminds us that we go through spiritual experiences ourselves, where we imagine and experience the divine in ways we never imagined possible. And that at every intersection of our lives, not only those times when we're excited, not only those times that feel good, but especially the times where we are called to make a decision. Will you trust God, or will you continue to go about life hiding? Will you continue to go about life putting others down? Will you continue to go about life not giving a care about those who are less fortunate than you? Or will you have opportunity to share this wonderful reality that all people are named and claimed as the beloved of God just the way they are? And yet, even in those times when we fail, as Peter failed, God continues to come to us and remind us, stand up, raise up, all is well, it's going to be okay. Do not be afraid, because I am with you always. The Transfiguration is all about this transforming message that each one of us matters to God. Peter had the assurance that Peter mattered. Peter mattered to God because God, living in and through Peter, gave Peter gifts to share with the world. Do you remember? Peter's moment wasn't when Peter said that he believed that Jesus was the Messiah. Peter was called the rock on which the church will be built. And yet, even Peter, with that kind of assurance, would ultimately fail. But in his failing, he is raised up and told one more time, Peter, I love you. Peter, I care for you. Peter, you are my beloved, just the way you are. And so our encouragement today is to realize that God says to us at each and every junction of our lives that we are loved. It does not mean that you will not have seasons of growth. It doesn't mean that you will not be uncomfortable. Because as I have served the church for over 20 years, the things that I have seen in my ministry that is consistent is that when people are growing, it's when they are the most uncomfortable. When people are growing, it is when they are the most uncomfortable. And why is that? Because in shedding our brokenness, shedding our fears, learning new behaviors, learning to do things differently, that makes us uncomfortable because it's all new. And there's one thing that my ministry has taught me over and over again, that God is always doing something new in and through each and every one of us. And yet, as we experience that uncomfortableness, instead of remembering God's words to Peter, just listen. Instead of hearing Jesus say, rise up, all is well, you're going to be fine. What we want to do with that uncomfortable, vulnerable place is to blame and shame others for that reality. We want to make everybody else the bad guy. But you know what happens? At night, when you go home, when you are in the Holy of Holies, in your own bedrooms, in your own bed, and as you put your head on your pillow, you know the truth of who you are. You know the truth of what you've done. You know the truth of what has happened in your life. The ways that others have perhaps abused you, the ways that others have chosen to marginalize you, the ways that some have tried to love you. And you have an opportunity to rid yourself of the shame and blame that you would cast on others by instead claiming whose you are. By trusting that everything in your world will be okay because God comes in the quietness of your heart to remind you that you are loved. Each and every one of you are loved. And that the things that we see as failure, God sees as opportunity. Opportunity to remind us yet one more time that we matter. Opportunities one more time to see that our gifts, the gifts that God has given us, matter to the world. And so stand on that promise. As we enter this holy season of Lent, we do so expecting that God will come in new ways, that God wants to bless each and every one of us in new and exciting ways. And just as this morning I marveled in this beauty of the shadow of the tree, of nature coming through the stained glass, that we are even more precious than that. Because we are God's beloved, and nothing will change that. I was so touched last night to have conversation after conversation with people who reminded me that the reason that they come back to MCC Richmond is because we are indeed a fabulous church. But the reason that we are fabulous is that we come as we are. And as we come as we are, we allow others to come as they are, right? So that they can come here and put down all of the defenses that they have learned to live within. They can put down everything that they have been taught so that they can hide. They can hide from being the people that they know they are created to be. And when you get that space of being able to come as you are, there's nothing that can change that. That's why, as we looked around the table, there were nothing but smiles going on. That's why we could get up and dance and have a fabulous time dancing. That's why Loretta can get up and lead the boot scooting believers, because she's confident of God's love in and through her. And so if you're going through something this morning, some fear or some doubt, live into God by allowing God to move within you in a new way. To remind you that it's okay to allow God to raise you up. Imagine God saying to you, it is okay because I love you, and together we will journey. Some of you are getting ready to move. Some of you are transitioning into retirement. Some of you are looking for that new place of employment. Some of you are afraid of a diagnosis or what the doctor might say. Some of you are realizing that it's time to enter a new phase of therapy. Some of you might be realizing that it is time to have a different volunteer experience or to discover a new ministry here at MCC Richmond. Whatever it is that might bring doubt and fear, as you go before God, know that God will be with you to bring to reality something more fabulous than you could have ever imagined. And why is that? Because God calls us to be the beloved of God. That's what the Transfiguration is all about. And as we step into our belovedness, then we can celebrate our blessedness. Then we will know that we are the salt of the earth and the light of the world. Then we can look at our future as individuals and as a congregation and as a movement, knowing that God will not leave us. And why is that? Because Jesus said, stand up. Do not